Hey everybody, hope you guys are having a good morning or a good evening at whatever time you are watching this. As we are watching episode 8 of Gospel Talks with Joseph. As you guys could probably tell, if you guys guessed right by the title of this video, we are going to be learning about Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail and how hard of a time that was. Actually, what inspired me to do this video was my last Institute lesson that I had attended. Brother Grimsman is actually a new Institute teacher at where I attend church, and he does amazing. He does this absolute wonderful job. And this lesson that he gave specifically, just as I was going through it and thinking about it, it just kind of made me realize how grateful and how much gratitude I have um, for what we've been given in this life, and I think just the things we take for granted sometimes. But very emotional lesson. I'll be honest. My past videos, I definitely feel the spirit, but sometimes what I pick is just at random choice. So this is the first time that I was influenced. So shout out Brother Grimsman. In preparation for this lesson, I also watched the Jeffrey R. Holland video. I believe it was like 15 years ago. I might be maybe something else, but I think it was 15 years ago. He gave a talk about the lessons from Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail during General Conference, but also reading Doctrine and Covenants, chapter 121, verse 123, if you guys want to go through that. They are great chapters to read through. That's also another thing. This is sort of my first video of covering Doctrine and Covenants. Most of the ones I've been covering are all in the Book of Mormon. The last one I did for the restoration of the priesthood has a little bit of DNC in there, but not too much. So this is one of my first videos where I'm covering Doctrine and Covenants. So where does this take place? Well, obviously we have Joseph Smith, who, we already have churches established and all that, so we're past that now. He's still a church leader. There's a lot of other church leaders that are sustained in this time. And in 1831, Joseph Smith had revelation that Missouri would be a place where saints would gather, and eventually the building up of Zion, and it was a good place up until 1838. You have war break out between Mormon versus non-Mormon forces. So during this time, Joseph Smith and 5 other leaders, church leaders, including Hiram Smith, Joseph's brother, they march on and with the flag of truce. Actually, before they march on with the flag of truce, just to describe what's happening here in Missouri, homes are being destroyed, they're being set on fire, and you have all kinds of stuff being stolen from these families, and families are being separated. They are being physically attacked and brutally hurt, some of these families. So just kind of that's what's going on right now, war breaking out. So then you have Joseph Smith and the 5 other church leaders, Hiram Smith, marching with a flag of truce to go on and actually meet the Missouri militia. I say that word, kind of weird. And the flag of truce basically is representing peace, negotiation, and some way they can solve this problem. However, unfortunately, the flag of truce was of not much worth in this situation. Joseph and the 5 other church leaders were chained up immediately. And it actually, the next morning, the Missouri militia, and the officers conveyed and basically ordered that they be shot and killed. And this is where we have General Alexander Doniphan, wanted to make sure I get that last name right, who actually courageously spoke um, and stood up on this and courageously ruled out this order, this unjustified order that they not be killed. So instead, Joseph Smith and these 5 other church leaders now are sent to Liberty Jail. And this is taking place in winter of 1838. Just to describe, these are some notes that I took of the description of Liberty Jail. These are words from the Jeffrey R. Holland video that I watched on this. It says Liberty Jail was described as escape-proof, 2 stories, top floor accessible to the outside world only by a small single heavy door. Middle of that room was trap floor to which prisoners were then sent to the lower floor. Outside walls of prison were of limestone, inside wall of 12-inch oak logs, 4 feet thick barrier. The ceiling height was barely 6 feet, and Joseph and some of the other men were 6 feet tall. They couldn't fully stand upright. When lying, it was mostly upon the rough bare stones of the prison floor, covered by loose, dirty straw. So, yeah, as we can already see, there's no getting out of this place. It's horrible. And just not only not getting out, but the space that they are already in, it is very small space for only 6 people. And the height of that ceiling, as we read, is 6 feet. They are over, Joseph and some of the other men are over 6 feet, so they can't even stand fully upright. They are having to scrooge down. And not only is this room small, but keep in mind, they are actually cuffed during this. And they're really not even moving at all. Some of the food that they were fed, not even some, really all of it was filthy. It was contaminated, and they were getting a lot of food poisoning. So much so that it's even described that really they could not eat it until driven by sheer hunger. So basically, we're talking about last resort here, that they could actually eat what they were being fed. And every day you have vomiting, you have sickness, and it is just a disaster. One thing to keep in mind too is this is during winter time, so it's cold and they're freezing, and it is also described that they were not given blankets. You have the stone floor. This is hurting their backs, and all they were given was straw, if you even consider that comfort, which honestly I really don't. I don't think any of us do. It's still a disaster as it is. Joseph describes in one of his letters the jail being a hell surrounded with demons where we are compelled to hear nothing except blasphemy and drunkenness and hypocrisy. So these non-Mormons who are soldiers who are keeping these church leaders imprisoned, they are saying all kinds of bad things about the church, talking about killing Mormons, and they are laughing about this while they're drunk. And all kinds of hatred, hypocrisy, and just bad mannerisms that Joseph and these other church leaders, including his brother, are having to hear all of this. At one point, Joseph does stand up and he can't take it anymore. And he looks at all these soldiers while they're feasting and they're getting drunk and saying all this evilness and foolishness. And he speaks with God's hand, the gift of tongues, whatever you want to call it, but he speaks strongly with the Spirit, and these soldiers are quiet instantly, and definitely that was a moment where I think even those soldiers were able to see the Spirit, even if it was just for a little bit. So as all of this is happening, you can only imagine how Joseph is feeling, being separated from his family for months. He's cold, they're hungry, there's famine, they're getting sick. and there's not comfort. They have a hard floor. And even when this was cold in the wintertime, even when they would have the furnace and the fire going on, there was a lot of smoke getting in the way, which wasn't helping either. So all of it was bad. So in Doctrine and Covenants chapter 121, verse 1, it says, O God, where art thou? And where's the pavilion that covereth thy hiding place? So if you were to like first read that verse or these chapters in D&C, I guess without actually watching the videos, maybe some of you guys have better visualization, oh my gosh, I lose my words, or better understanding of the scriptures. I am definitely a visual learner. I understand a lot more when I'm reading the videos. I love watching the Book of Mormon videos and whatnot. I definitely can go back into the scriptures afterwards, and I just have a much better understanding. So if I were to read that before I even watch anything, I don't think I'd understand the deepness of it, how personal and how Joseph Smith is saying that what he says in that verse with all of his heart, and just a humble question, really. Oh God, where art thou? And where is the pavilion that covereth thy hiding place? It's sad, honestly, even looking back and reading that verse, because you just feel it after seeing the horrible stuff they had to go through. And I think any of us in that situation, or just the situations we have in our own lives, we oftentimes really kind of put the blame on God. And I think that's a big reason of why we have so many people who don't go to church at all, no matter what religion it is, right? To just in general, they do not believe in any higher power because of the things that are happening to them. I truly believe that's probably the biggest reason why people don't care to go to church. They've seen illnesses, they've seen deaths, all manners of hatred in this wicked world, and they are quick to assume that there is no God. Whereas this is different, right? Joseph Smith had already seen an angel. He already seen Christ, and he already had seen God. He knew that they were real. He knew that they were there. But he was asking, where were they in that moment, especially to these saints, right? And why him? So it's one thing to believe, but sometimes we ask those questions, why us? And it's hard. It's very tricky sometimes when we are going through something devastating, not just for a short time, but for months. And so he is saying, oh God, where art thou? That is in the very first verse. And then if you go all the way to verse 7 of the same chapter 121, verse 7, Joseph Smith is reaffirmed. He says, my son, peace be unto thy soul. Thine adversity and thine affliction shall be but for a small moment. That is so powerful. I just the Spirit just filled me as I read that verse. Oh my gosh, I can't even stress how much that verse means to all of us. I think, I'll be honest, some of my most stressful moments is work. I never try to have work be the only thing I talk about. It's not. It's not. But my work is painful. I'm just gonna admit it. I have times where I have all the free time in the world. I'm chilling, I'm relaxing at home. And then there's times where I'm traveling non-stop. And while I'm traveling, things happen while I'm traveling. One of the biggest ones is I need a part that I don't have, and then I have to wait for that to get shipped. And, it just causes disaster or whatnot. Or there's times where there's something that really can't be fixed in that moment, and it just has to wait. And then it just causes, contention with the hospitals. I work in hospitals. And I can't even fathom how much stress it gives me. But one thing I've noticed is we go through these things a lot. Whatever trial we're going through, we go through them for a span of who knows how long. But it's never for our whole lives, right? I'm not going through the same trial that I was going through when I was 10 years old. I'm not going through the same trial that I was going to when I was 5 years old, right? Everything comes to pass. This too shall pass is also another beautiful phrase in the gospel. But my son, peace be unto thy soul. Thine adversity and thine afflictions shall be but a small moment. And I actually like verse 10 in this chapter as well. It says, Thou art not yet as Job. Thy friends do not contend against thee, neither charge thee with transgression as I did Job. So now he's comparing Joseph with Job, right? For those of you who don't know, Job was a very wealthy man, very rich with what he had. He had all kinds of animals, right? He had all kinds of land. He had 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. And all his children were killed. He lost all of his animals. He lost his land. I mean, he had nothing for a period of time. But Job still put his faith in Christ. And so you see someone as strong as Joseph Smith, and it's pretty crazy to see that, wow, Joseph Smith is even being compared to Job now, right? So as much as we might think we have faith and we're steadfast, there's so much more to our souls that we have in us. There's so much strength and power that we don't even realize we have. And God is showing us, have gratitude. This will only be but for a small moment. And it's true, right? We read these and we compare it to our own lives, right? My little apartment that I'm in now, um, it's not that big. It's not that big, right? For me, it's plenty. But you compare it to Liberty Gel, and there was 6 of them. Liberty Gel is smaller than where I'm at right now, and I'm here living by myself. So just little analogies that we put in our own lives. We have it so good, and we are so blessed, and we don't even realize it. Um, Elder Brigham H. Roberts actually refers the facility meaning the prison that they are at, as a temple or as a prison temple. Basically, what Elder Brigham Roberts is kind of saying here is, yes, it was a disaster, but we can add this to the gospel, right? This can strengthen our testimonies that our prophet, Joseph Smith and the other church leaders, they are able to see God's hand through these moments, right? It's not always that easy to see God's hands when everything is going smoothly. Sometimes we only really see God's hands through those rough times. And so that's kind of the analogy that Brigham H. Roberts is using here. And, you know, eventually, Joseph Smith goes on to live 5 years after all of this happened. 5 more years before he was martyred, before he was shot and killed. And so these are just reaffirmations that everything is but for a small moment. And I think of the opposition, right? This will be a story of to show that Satan and his army, they are still with us and they are trying to tear us down. It's the opposition in everything. We know what is good, we know what is righteous because we know what is evil and wicked. And we know what is evil and wicked because we know what is good and righteous. And it just shows the importance of being gathered as one, continuing to gather the tribes of Israel with other saints. But just having faith. Faith is the word that I use in all of my videos. Faith I use so many times in all my videos because I think that's what the main lesson is in anything we read. Book of Mormon, D&C, Pearl of Great Price. All these stories teach the one very first and the very principle that we need to stay true to is faith. And I'll continue to say it. I won't stop saying it, because that's what these lessons are for. That's why these books strengthen our testimony. We're able to look at all the bad events and see what did Joseph Smith do, and put that into our own lives as well. So I'd like to just bear my testimony that I hope whatever Liberty Gel you are going through, whatever our Liberty Gel is in our life, where we feel stuck, lost, and we are not seeing God's hands in our life, and we are unsure why this burden is happening upon us, I can share my testimony with you and bear it with all my heart, that these trials are meant to strengthen us, and it's just humbling yourself and having gratitude and seeing God's hand in your life. So I like to say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys for episode 9. Peace.